Hello, I'm Reverend Kenny Callahan, the pastor at Metropolitan Community Church of Richmond. This coming Sunday, we're celebrating our 43rd anniversary as being MCC Richmond. The sacred text for the service is taken from Mark's story, the 5th chapter, verses 21 to 43. I love this parable because it's about the vulnerability of three people, Jairus, an unnamed woman, and Jairus' daughter, and Jesus' response to their vulnerability. These three people are all as different as night and day. They have different life experiences, and yet all of their lives are transformed by the compassion and love of Jesus. Jairus was a leader of a local synagogue. His gender, his position, his status gave him tremendous power, comfort, and prestige. An unnamed woman, and being unnamed tells you a lot about her place in her society. This woman was sick for more than a decade with an illness that was likely emotionally and physically painful and debilitating, which also likely forced her to live on the edge of her community. And a young girl, deathly ill, has no rights, no power, little life remaining, and no say in what will happen to her. These three people with different realities of life, yet they all have something in common: extreme desperation and vulnerability. Jairus was reduced to the painful impotence and helplessness every parent feels when a child is ill, so desperate that he drops to his knees and begging and pleading with Jesus to help his daughter. The unnamed woman pushed her way through the crowd and its potential hostility in the hope of simply touching the hem of Jesus' clothing, and the young girl wasting away with only hopes and prayers to surround her. These three different people experiencing extreme vulnerability, and Jesus responds to each of them with compassion, healing, and love, naming both the unnamed woman and the little girl as daughters, calming the fears of both the woman on the edge of society and the man who leads his synagogue with words of peace and courage, healing and love, and restoring the girl to life and her father and the woman to health and to her community. I think it's important to notice the importance and emphasis on touch in this passage. Jairus begs Jesus to simply lay his hands on his daughter. The unnamed woman wants to simply touch Jesus' clothing. And Jesus doesn't simply lay hands on the young girl, but takes her by the hand and lifts her to life. Jesus responds to each of their needs by touching them, connecting with them, joining himself to them through his compassionate embrace. And he does the same exact things for us each and every day of our lives. Jesus responds to the vulnerability of these three people, restoring them to health and life and wholeness, because he always responds to vulnerability, offering the gifts of life, of wholeness, and most of all, his love. This is simply who Jesus is and what Jesus does. He sees, he cares for, he loves, he embraces, and he restores those who are desperate and vulnerable. A Savior and Redeemer who transforms lives and invites us to see ourselves and our vulnerability as the beloved of God, just the way we are. People who Jesus reaches with compassion, with healing, with hope, and with love.